First live and interactive news conversation web TV. I am Prachi Jatania. To make this entire conversation interesting, today we are talking about Narendra Modi's leadership. Now he is the Prime Minister elect and getting a lot of congratulatory greetings from across the globe, especially from our neighboring countries including Bangladesh and Pakistan. Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif called him and greeted him. In fact, even invited him over to Pakistan. Will Narendra Modi's leadership as the new Prime Minister usher in a different kind of an era for Indo-Pak relations, Indo-Bangladesh relations? We'll try and find out and get you interesting voices from various participants from Dhaka, in fact, and Kathmandu and Pakistan to give us more perspective on this entire conversation. We have in the studio a very eminent and special guest. We have Mr. Kamar Raga, who's a peace activist, journalist and author, in fact an academic, and we also have Mubarak Haidarji, Pakistani author and political analyst. Thank you both for participating in our conversation at India Post Live. We will also have Ajmal Jani joining us from Pakistan, anchor of Dunya TV, and freelance journalist Sumi Khan also joining us via Skype, and we will have Santosh Ghimere from Kathmandu. We'll get those voices in, but I'll just come to you first, Kamarji. What are your thoughts in terms of ushering a new era between Indo-Pak relations, and how big a challenge will it be for Narendra Modi?
You see, as far as his election campaign, or if you talk about manifesto, different speeches which he has given, during the campaigning, he said that it would be continuation of NDA 1, which means Atal Bihari Vajpayee,
Yes.
And almost same policy was also adopted by the UPA 1 and UPA 2 also, with slight moderation, So he basically what he wants, he wants a continuation of dialogue, bilateral relationship, will also equally emphasize on trade policies, not be much change, except there'll be change in tone and tenor, in the sense that he has made it categorically clear that terror and talks will not go. And he has also made a statement and asked Pakistan to close down all the terrorist camps which are existing in Pakistan, the Kashmiri militant camps in Pakistan, So here comes the difference between, in the sense, that same argument was also given by the previous government, Manmohan Singh, but his was very weak leadership. Here is the man, who would assert his position. Second thing, he has also mentioned somewhere, once that we will not continue to follow the first use nuclear option, we'll give up this option, to build up a pressure on Pakistan so that negotiate. Second thing, general policy is not going to change. It would remain, guided by the 1972 Shimla Accord and the Lahore Accord, which Atal ji has signed with Nawaz Sharif, So will be guided by bilateral. He would like to sort out all outstanding issues by negotiation. He would not allow third-party intervention, which is traditionally Indian stance, Will not take it to the United Nations, the dispute, or would not prefer, like the meddling of big powers into Kashmir or any other issue.
I'll get Mr. Haider in at this point. Mr. Haider, do you believe then it's going to be a tough balancing act for Narendra Modi, known for his hardline stance so far, also the backing of the Sangh Parivar, of having the Hindu ideology backing him? Do you feel that will stand in the way and make it a tough balancing act for Modi?
I don't think, because it is a moment where the political vote gathering is over, and the in democratic politics you have to be more realistic than your ideals dictate. So you have to cater to the taste and to the sentiment of the common man, the voter. So in those stages of the process, you sometimes look like what you really are not. After the elections are over and he is in the saddle, he has to deliver. And every eye is watchful, and there are very strong opponents, not only within India but elsewhere. And he cannot afford, no leader with such popularity, with such a tide, riding a tide of that grandeur and that mandate, can afford to waste a single moment. He has to deliver. Actually, it is not Hindutva that has given him the power. As a Pakistani and a political analyst, I understand that he represents a class. Everywhere people but utilize every weapon that suits them, because they ultimately need state power to support them for their economic motives. He has come with the power of the corporate class to represent the aspirations of that class, and the aspirations are not to destroy India into division and rift and riots. It is to unite India in the effort to become an
deliver on his promises.
And the main challenge that the corporate India is facing is China.
Right.
Therefore, they are doing it. He will be very clear on his effort to create an economic base to make it capable of facing China. Yes.
Hold on to that thought. Very interesting point brought in by Mr. Haider. I'll get in Lenin here, who's an online activist joining us from Dhaka, Bangladesh. Thank you so much, Lenin, for participating in the conversation at India Post Live. You've listened to both our panelists here in the studio. What are your first thoughts with Modi being the Prime Minister-elect and the huge mandate that the BJP got as the majority in forming the government here, and what will be the days ahead in Indo-Bangla relations?
I think Modi definitely got the mandate from India's people, and people of India might have chosen their correct leadership for the time being. And for India and Bangladesh, it's more of country-wide relation and policies. We have some bilateral issues like border issue, the rivers. We have Bangladesh is a country of rivers, and we are suffering from the barrages done on the major rivers. We are suffering from arsenic pollution caused from these river barrages, Tista, Farakka, those, and Tipaimuk. So we would expect that Modi's government or any government in India will be looking at these things. These are natural things, and if we do not pay enough attention, if we want to alter the nature, that would be devastating for the region.
Right.
So I think, there always have been good relations between India and Bangladesh, and upcoming days, Modi's government also will be friendly to Bangladesh.
Great. I'll just bring in Jahanzeeb Hussain, also another interesting participant from Vancouver. He's the editor of the Collateral Damage magazine. Thank you so much, Jahanzeeb Hussain, for joining us on Google Hangout at the conversation on India Post Live. We appreciate your participation. What are your first thoughts for the Modi's mandate, and what kind of expectations are riding for the Modi-led government in the weeks ahead in terms of relations with neighboring countries, including Bangladesh and Pakistan?
Thanks. I think it is important to remember that when Nawaz Sharif was in power and in India, Atal Bihari Vajpayee was in power, the relations between the two governments were actually good because Nawaz Sharif wanted to build economic relationships with India. You have to remember that Nawaz Sharif represents the industrial class of Punjab, and I think it is in the benefit of both the countries. I think the markets would encourage closer relationship between the two countries, and I think Nawaz Sharif will have to balance the nationalist rhetoric that the army owns in Pakistan, and how to balance that with his desire to approach and build better economic relationships with India. Now, I don't think that Hindutva or Indian Hindu nationalism would be a blocking factor between the relationships between two countries, because I think, as one of the panelists also mentioned, I think the economic growth is the main thing that brought Modi to power, and Nawaz Sharif represents the industrial classes of Punjab, and I think both of them would want better relationships between the two. Though the big question is how the army would react in Pakistan, and if Nawaz Sharif can control some of the jihadi movements in Punjab, because right now Pakistan needs that for its own foreign policy purposes in Afghanistan, and some jihadi groups are also being used in Balochistan and Sindh to counter nationalism there. So how do you manage that? I think that's the challenge that Nawaz Sharif faces at the moment.
Right, a big challenge also. We'll have to see what kind of posturing happens, political posturing in the weeks ahead. Sumi Khan joining us from Dhaka as well, freelance journalist for Al Jazeera. Thank you, Sumi. Welcome to the conversation on IndiaPostLive.com. Do you have any comments and questions for our guests here in the studio? Please go ahead, Sumi.
Yeah. Excuse me. Welcome here. I'm really thankful to the host, all you us. In fact, it is known to all that everybody knows that in our Bangladesh, the people are really worried about Modi administration. And if Modi administration take care of the Bengali people who are migrated from 1971, before or after 1971, and we believe that in some extent they are asset of India. And not only that, our present government, they did most to improve our relationship, Indo-Bangla relationship, and to control the insurgencies also. But we know before the election, pre-election threat, Modi ji told that he will expel Bengali-speaking people. It was a threat. Not only that, the communal impatience also very important factor for both of our nations.
Right,
In that case, I would like to know that about if our guests, you people, please tell about this.
Definitely an interesting question. Mr. Kamar, would you like to respond to what
Yes,
Sumi has raised concerns about?
Yeah, it's a very important. I know there are a lot of concern in Bangladesh and many other quarters.
Thank you.
First of all, I would like to assure her or tell her, one thing. There's nothing to worry. We have a very friendly government in Bangladesh, Dhaka, and he will not do anything, to upset these ties, bilateral ties, just because of the migrants. Migration is a very important, major concern in Assam,
Border
West
areas.
Bengal, and the border areas,
Right.
because they are upsetting disturbing even the demography of some of the districts, or having a cultural impact on that region. So that's a very serious problem facing that region. Second thing, we would like to see, the successive government have been promising, to expel these people, but it is a very difficult task at the same time also. But so it will take some time, and I'm sure he would have some consultation with the government of Bangladesh also, will take into confidence, and then there are many ways to tackle, the government has taken. One is fencing. We don't have to literally fence because the technology has developed. We have available this technology like laser fencing, like many other. First thing is to how to prevent further illegal immigration, and then see, identify people and gradually deport them from India to this place. But most of the time, we have been listening, all the successive government have promised, but
nothing has been
done on this.
Because and they seem to become a vote bank as well for local politicians.
Second thing I would like to say, we would like to improve our ties with Bangladesh. Bangladesh is very important for us, And in the last 5 years, ties between the two countries have really
been on a high.
We'd like to further. Modi would also like to further consolidate these ties between the two countries. That is going to be very important issue before him.
Right. I'll just bring in Mr. Haider. Sir, aren't these genuine concerns from a lot of sections of Bangladesh civil society as well, that illegal immigration has been a sensitive issue that the BJP really has time and again broached during the campaign, but has left it, it's like a political hot potato at times. So how will Narendra Modi leadership be able to tackle it? He's known to be very hawkish in tackling border issues. He's not going to be taking a laid back stand at all.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, I may not be very aware and very well informed on the Bangladesh border issues with India, but generally speaking, border issues and immigrations are a universal phenomena. They everywhere in the world, people are trying to, because aspirations are high, people are aware of the possibilities, and the internet has given so much of awareness. Right. So when you look at a more prosperous possibility, you try to reach out to it. Right. So immigration is not an easy issue to tackle. You have to find more workable ways. Instead of destroying the immigrants, beating them, pushing them back, you have to create conditions in those countries where they can find their jobs and feel more comfortable in their own lands.
I think Mr. Kamal,
I just wanted to add one thing, Mr. Modi would like to have better trade ties with them. Yeah. There is
it's a growing economy.
Bangladesh. Not only that, there are a lot of discussions have taken place on this. One of the things why the migration is taking place, mainly because of the growing unemployment in Bangladesh. Right. So idea is here we have a plan. The government of India, the previous government or this government also, and so to make big investment in Bangladesh. So the Indian investment we would like to go to Bangladesh, create jobs locally, especially in this sector, in this region, and check the migration.
Yeah. I'll bring in, just on another note, I'll bring in A.B. Thakaran from Thimphu, Bhutan, who's a media consultant. Thank you so much for joining us and being patient at the conversation on India Post Live. Mr. Thakaran, Mr. Tharakan, sorry, I apologize. Do excuse our pronunciations. Thank you for your participation. Would you like to add a comment on the discussion that we are having here about the ties between the neighboring countries and Modi's leadership and the challenge ahead for the Modi-led government?
When you talk about relations between India and Bhutan,
yes.
Okay.
I'll bring in tremendous goodwill since the time of Bhutan's third king and India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru. And Bhutan is India's biggest trading partner and India has been supporting Bhutan's development plans. In fact, India supported Bhutan's first two 5-year plans completely. And but at the same time, there has been some apprehensions in some quarters about an India government coming to power. I mean, a BJP government is in power. That especially during the campaign, people in BJP have said that they would have a tough foreign policy, but it may not really refer to Bhutan, mainly with China and Pakistan. Modi may consider a tougher policy, but for Bhutan, there are too many political, strategic, and economic ties to make a substantial adjustment in the relationship. At the same time, though Bhutan has enjoyed excellent relationship with Congress governments, it's not the first time that Bhutan is seeing an NDA government. During the NDA one time between 1999 and 2004, the king of Bhutan, the fourth king of Bhutan, he led forces to the border to flesh out Ulfa militants who had taken refuge in Bhutan's forest. So there is an amount of tremendous goodwill between India and Bhutan. And moreover, with trade on top of Mr. Modi's agenda, I think the relationship will only grow.
Mr. Tarakan, I have a question. What will be the top 3 expectations that the government of Bhutan would have towards the Modi-led government in terms of not just trade but cultural relations as well and bilateral ties? Top 3 expectations from what you are getting as you know for the Modi government.
The Prime Minister of Bhutan, Mr. Srintokhe, was one of the first heads of governments to consult Mr. Modi yesterday, and he wrote to Mr. Modi expressing his desire to visit India at the earliest to have discussion. When we talk of people to people, it has been excellent, and Bhutan has.
I'll just interrupt you, Mr. Tarakan, just for a minute. If any of the participants had the website on, could you please log out of the website, because the discussion is actually echoing, is interfering. If you could just log out. If you could reduce the volume of the website. If any of our participants are in fact logged on to the website, please log out so that we can continue the discussion. Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Tarakan. We also have a question from one of our guests in the studio. Mr. Kamaraga has a question and a point to make from what you were saying.
I just wanted to ask about the Chinese presence, growing Chinese presence in Bhutan. Is there any, if so, how they're taking up?
Bhutan doesn't have diplomatic relations with China, and Bhutan is very much, aware as well as on India's strategic interest in the region. And the border talks has been going on. Bhutan and China for a very long time, and during the previous government's time, during the deputy government's time, there has been some perception that, especially in India, that Bhutan is moving closer towards China. But the present government, the People's Democratic Party government, has maintained that when it comes to foreign policy, Bhutan will follow a very conservative foreign policy, which has been followed by the kings for the past few decades. And the cornerstone of that, Bhutan's foreign policy will be its excellent relationship with India.
Right. Right. Mr. Jahanzeeb Hussain, if you're listening to what all our participants are discussing, would you like to add a point or two? And if you have a question for our guests in the studio as well, we'd be happy to let the interaction happen.
Yeah, I mean, I've been listening very carefully, and I think one of the things that I would like to mention is that I think for Nawaz Sharif government, the victory of Modi is actually a good thing. I don't think they'll be very worried about Modi coming into power, because he's someone, as I said, who's supported by the market, and I think Nawaz Sharif will look at it as a chance to increase the prosperity of the Punjab province, if not the entire Pakistan. And I think the rhetoric that Modi uses of being strong against outside enemies, I think is mostly for electoral purposes and inside purposes, and not necessarily for anything else. I don't see how Modi would necessarily react in a rash way towards Pakistan. In fact, I would not be surprised if he extends a hand to Nawaz Sharif, as Vajpayee did. And I think one thing would be interesting is that if there's an attack on India by Pakistani-based militants, because we saw in 2008 when Zardari was trying to improve relations with India, Mumbai happened, then Kargil happened when Nawaz Sharif was trying to do the same. Because Pakistani state has created so many fifth columns that it does not have complete control over different militant groups.
Right.
And if Nawaz Sharif is trying to improve relations with Modi, some of the militant groups who are not in Pakistan's control can independently strike inside India. And if that happens, then what would be the reaction of Modi, or of how would Nawaz Sharif handle that? I think that's an interesting thing for the future.
That's a very important point. In fact, Mr. Haider has constantly echoed the same thing as well.
Yeah, that is my most concentrated subject that I've been doing for the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years, concentrating and doing whatever I could to educate our own people, to criticize ourselves. This is our narcissism, as I wrote about it. Mm-hmm. People in Pakistan have a very high degree of pathological narcissism. We hate to be corrected. In fact, we believe the whole world is wrong. We are the only correct people. Whatever we do is right. And if there are other people who disagree with us, they are jealous of us. If they criticize us, they are jealous of us. That attitude has been because of the three classes that rule us. And the three classes the whole world knows. It is the feudal class, the army bureaucracy came in, and then the mullah, as you call, clergy, joined them, or they used the clergy, which has now become an independent force in themselves.
Right.
These are the the forces which have never let Pakistan grow as a country, as an economic entity. Nawaz Sharif and Shahbaz, both of them brothers, but very, very practical and honest tradesmen, honest businessmen, very shrewd, very capable. But the question is, they are facing a country where so many forces,
external, internal forces,
yes,
all of them.
Mainly internal. I refuse to expand the area of responsibility. It is entirely our own responsibility in Pakistan. Whatever we have done to ourselves is not to be externalized over to others.
Right.
We have that we catch over that. As the moment you say internal and external, we say more external. In fact, Pakistan has had no external interference.
Don't you feel that these internal extremist forces time and again derail the peace process, derail the bilateral relations between India and Pakistan? They go on to a positive note, you see signs of improvement, and then a 26/11 happens, and again, you see the leadership exchanging peace talks, but behind the scenes, there's extremist elements actually creating attacks, and there are, problems created.
Absolutely. This is what I am saying. I'm on record for writing more than one book on it.
Yes.
this is the subject, this is the issue that we face, and it's a minority in Pakistan which has completely hijacked the show and the people, and they do not let us think about our economic and physical and even spiritual prosperity. They keep us pitted against the world.
Then you would say that Pakistan is on a self-destructive path.
It is
all the time.
and that is exactly the words. I have said a pathological narcissist has no way of getting himself treated unless the family force him or her to get the treatment. And the family in the present world is the international forces. First of all, regional forces. There are certain regional forces in the vicinity of Pakistan which do not, which benefit from this malady, this disease.
Right.
In order to defeat some enemies or some adversaries, they use Pakistani pathological narcissism, and therefore we do not get healthy. But we have to find a community of nations around us, and I believe India has to play a role, very important role. China is already ready in a way, and Iran is ready to cooperate. America and Europe are ready to cooperate. Only force that refuses to is Russia. Russia is not coming into the net of this this good work. So, but we have to, we hope that with this retaliatory reaction that India has shown, I call it a reaction, reaction to Pakistan and to the Muslim behavior within India.
Right.
I believe as the majority vote behind Modi gives him the strength to ask for sense, to ask for some sense to prevail.
Right.
I think Pakistan will have to seriously consider. My only fear is, and it is mainly I am asking my own people,
yes,
but I am also asking Mr. Modi to help us. There is a great risk of agent provocateurs.
yes,
Modi will try to deliver the goods to his country and make it a viable economic unit against international forces like China. And ultimately, we know, you know, the world will find the better and the cheaper product to buy.
yes, yes.
If China has given us the cheaper goods,
Right.
It has failed to give us goods, quality goods. If India can give us cheaper and quality goods, India can have space. We have no rivalry with India, believe me. Pakistan has no rivalry with India because Pakistan is a commodity market. It's a consumer market.
Mr. Heather, to take forward your thought, in fact, we have a video coming from Mr. Amir Mughal in Pakistan. In fact, it's a reaction to the mandate and the new government that is set to come in through Modi's leadership. This is the reaction that Amir Mughal sent us. Take a look.
It would be premature to predict what would be the effects on Pakistan polity after Modi's recent victory in elections. However, if we go through the history, we can surely and safely say that Nawaz Sharif will try to start the peace process which he had started in 1999. However, the right-wingers in Pakistan, the religious lobby, though not in majority, but very influential in media and lower middle class, they would try their best to exploit this victory to quote this victory as a Hindu victory, to strengthen their own constituencies by raising hue and cry that look, in India, people are voting for a religious party, hence Pakistani Muslim should also do that. This would be the outcome in certain lobbies. Overwhelmingly, we Pakistanis do want a peace with India.
Right, Amir Mughal there giving his reaction and views. Mr. Kamar, your thoughts on, before we try and take forward this conversation, your thoughts on what Amir Mughal has said in terms of expectations riding on Mr. Modi's government?
There are 2-3 things, First of all, I'd like to mention, we believe that these militant groups, they are strategic assets of the Pakistani army. This is the general belief in India, cutting across party lines. So everybody believes that, and the media also believe, we believe. And we also see there is a great deal of cooperation between the two.
Right.
And we also believe, we have also noticed that whenever, especially, the army in Pakistan, which is the most powerful institution in that country, is not interested in having peace with India. So what happens, Atalji went Lahore, had a talk with them, Kargil took place immediately after that. That was the stage by the army. We all know how Musharraf was involved. Everything has come out, Then further, we started negotiating with Pakistan. Different number of occasions we see Parliament was attacked, and the last major attack was on Bombay, 2008.
Right.
So we make progress. When we come to some conclusion or when we come to some understanding with Pakistan, so a major strikes takes place. So this is the thing, But this time also, last time, what was that? It was resumed. And then beheading of the 2 Indian soldiers at the border, cross-border, frequent firings. These things have become infiltrations in Kashmir and other parts. So these are the things with this. We believe that Nawaz Sharif is serious. He may be wanted to have peace, but he doesn't have power to deliver. One thing. Second thing, as far as Mr. Mubarak has just mentioned, Mr. Haider has mentioned, we want trade, we can provide, together, there are many things which Pakistan can provide to us, and we can export a lot of things,
We can be a thriving business partner.
Thriving business partner.
Right.
And our plan, we want, free trade agreement,
Yes.
Is still waiting, we are still waiting for it, We have big list of products, which Pakistan is not allowed to.
I'll get in Sumi Khan as well before we try and get some more inputs from Mr. Kamar. He's actually said some very important points. Sumi, your last thoughts, one comment that you'd like to make, a big concern for the Bangladeshi community as well in Dhaka. But what is the one big expectation that you have from the Modi government then?
In fact, our about 40 million people and Muslim majority country, and the Hindu nationalist Mr. Modi is seen as a controversial, polarizing figure, and many people in Bangladesh are worried about his campaign and rhetoric, which seems to be aimed at Bangladesh. They are also concerned that if he is not enough concerned about or against the communal riots starting against like 2002.
Right.
If he has patience and very much aware about this to take peaceful relation, and if any more riot, we have to stop it for humanity. We just want humanity.
Right. Thank you so much, Ms. Sumi Khan, for your thoughts. In fact, I'll get one last statement, final statement from Jahanzib Hussain as well. We really have to, try and wrap up the show, but we'll take it forward on our website and our Twitter page. Mr. Jahanzib Hussain, if you're listening, one final comment from you.
Yes, I mean, I kind of disagree with what was said earlier. I mean, you noted that attacks happened in Kargil and Mumbai, but I think this time the context is a bit different. I think Pakistani army has realized that this mortal threat comes from the Taliban and not from India. So I think it might be a bit more open to better relations with India, might not react violently against if the Syrian government is trying to improve the relationships with the country, because that would increase the pressure not just from the eastern side of the border from the Taliban, but also from the western side, which is India. So I think the context today is a bit different. And though Nawaz Sharif and the army have many disagreements, I think the disagreements are mostly towards what kind of policy should be pursued in relation to the Taliban, and not necessarily with India. I think the army could allow some stability and economic progress to come into Pakistan with better relationships with India. So I think the context is a bit different today as opposed to before, and we hope that some of the old tumbling blocks that we saw before would be removed a bit more easily this time than before, and we wish good luck to both the countries.
Very optimistic view there coming from young Jahanzeb. In fact, the youth voters seem to feel, young citizens of India also seem to reflect a similar thought process. I'll get in Mr. Lenin here at this point from Dhaka. Your last thoughts on what our panelists have been saying and what Sumi Khan's concerns are about Modi's leadership.
I would like to praise Modi for his praise statement that latrines are more important than the temples. I would like to see Modi on that statement firm. I want him to be out of any sort of religious extremism or any sort of cheap fandom creation or something like that. I mean, he must show what he has been chosen for. India has given him the power, I mean, people of India, so he should bring up India to something positive.
Right.
And all the neighbors should also see that.
Right. Right. Mr. Tharakan, your last thoughts on the way ahead for Indo-Bhutan relations, and one big expectation that people in Bhutan would have from the Modi-led government.
Bhutan has its second ever elected parliament now, and in another 2 months it will be completing its first year. And President Prime Minister Srin Tobgay has met, as opposition leader, he has met Ms. Sushma Swaraj when she was opposition leader. So Bhutan would be expecting a strengthening of relationship, especially in terms of trade. Because as Mr. Modi's promise of strengthening, in terms of economy and strengthening trade relations, so Bhutan would look for a better market for its products in India. 1, 2, and also India has promised to support Bhutan to fulfill its 10,000 megawatt electricity hydropower target.
Yes.
And so it's a mutually beneficial relationship, and there's a tremendous amount of existing goodwill, which will only grow. And Mr. Srin Tobgay, the Prime Minister, is expected to meet Mr. Modi soon. And the last time an Indian Prime Minister came here was in 2000. It was Mr. Manmohan Singh. He came here for the SAARC summit and also visited the year before. So we're also expecting that Mr. Modi will also visit Bhutan soon.
Right, right. I'll just get in. We have another interesting guest joining us on Skype. I would like to get him to join us at this point. We'll try and get that connection. Mr. Kamar, you wanted to react to what our guests are saying via Google Hangout. In fact, what Mr. Jahanzeb Hussain in fact also said. Your point.
No, I just wanted to tell that lady, she was
Ms.
concerned.
Sumi Khan,
Sumi
yes.
was, I can believe, her concern, She is, but I wanted to tell her that law and order in India is controlled by the state governments, not by the federal. And I would like to also mention her that most of the states in India are not controlled by the BJP. BJP-led governments are not there. So therefore that he doesn't have a power to create law and order situation or instigate communal rights in any of the states, he has a central government, he would be dealing with the central government. His duty is to ensure law and order, in the country.
But
Otherwise,
wouldn't that be a challenging task for the
It's
Modi
a-
government then, the problem of illegal migration, like you've been saying, Mr. Heather has also
I was
said.
mentioning about the communal
Communal
rights.
rights.
She was mentioning about the
Yes.
Gujarat.
Yes.
There is a different Gujarat as a chief minister. Yes, there is a possibility. The government can, directly or
You believe that
indirectly.
the past failures have to be forgotten? Moved
I
on.
am not saying that has to be forgotten, but here when he comes to the prime minister
Right.
chair, he has
It's a bigger
different.
role.
It's a much bigger role, he has to see. He has to see that the maintenance of law and order. He cannot disturb that. Otherwise there'll be a problem for him. And the second thing, this is a state subject, not the national government. Law and order. And most of the state BJP-led government is not in power. So these are the things, I mentioned, because these are the general concerns I've noticed in Pakistan also, the Bangladesh also. A lot of people are thinking here also what would happen, So generally, it will not be there. And second thing, his main agenda is development, because he has to show, otherwise the BJP, he's got such a majority, will start losing. In India, democracy is very strong. And voters have become very intelligent, they know. So he has to deliver that, he has to show something, the economic growth, he has to create 10 million jobs per year, next 5 years,
Mr. Heather, don't you feel that a lot of young India seems to have given this mandate to the BJP, especially to Narendra Modi? The Modi wave was talked about during the campaigning of, before the Indian elections in the run-up. Do you feel the youth of Pakistan also would like to associate with this kind of leadership? Do you feel that there is a vacuum there of leadership that the youth can look up to, or can connect with promises of job security, of development, of economic growth?
I wish it were so, but in Pakistan we have had the indoctrination of our youth during the last several decades, and our youth is all said and done pretty ignorant and misguided. They went for our Imran Khan, who of course talked about development and progress and new Pakistan, but the concept of new Pakistan turned out to be a Pakistan for Taliban. He defended Taliban ultimately. I don't think the orientation of our youth is very clear, but as time passes they are becoming maturer. Maybe they have more experience in another few years, and maybe if Mr. Modi delivers as he has delivered in a province, in one state, he delivers in India.
Right.
The people, because jadoo wo jo sar chad ke bole wali baat, when things are so conspicuously visible, you cannot deny them. If India progresses, the poverty and abject misery of the common man, of course, is what gives Pakistani politicians the edge against India. They quote this, they talk about it very vociferously. But if the lot of the common man in India it becomes better, and there is an improvement, and we can see that it's democracy in India with Modi is delivering in this way, we may find our youth changing their attitudes from myopic religious narcissism to practical economic thinking.
On that note, we have to welcome Mr. Ajmal Jami, who is an anchor with Dunya TV, joining us from Islamabad, I believe. Thank you, Mr. Jami, for your participation. We look forward to your thoughts, in fact, at the conversation on India Post Live. We really appreciate your interaction, and we have some esteemed guests as well who are part of our discussion. Your first thoughts on Modi's landslide victory and the BJP getting a clear mandate, and what are the days, what are the expectations from the Modi-led government? What are the feelers you're getting in Pakistan?
Well, thank you very much. I'm based in Lahore. Can you hear me? I hope you can hear me. It was quite problematic for me to get connected to you guys. Thank you very much for asking me to be there yet again. Kamar sahab, aapko salam hai, sir. और नमस्ते तमाम दोस्त जो हमारे बॉर्डर के दूसरी ओर में बैठे हैं. बहुत मुबारकबाद, शुभकामनाएं आपके लिए. Yeah, I was really excited and I was keenly monitoring these elections. But I would like to raise few things, just couple of things. I mean, when they were in opposition, the BJP, they used to say that they need to launch surgical strikes across the LOC here in some areas of Pakistan. And what will be their stance now when Modi will be the Prime Minister, number one. And secondly, I mean, we have seen that the Communist parties of India, the Marxist, I think they did not come up to that mark which was required. Plus, there is not even a single Muslim seat in the belts of BJP ranks. I mean, they had some candidates, but no one was able to win a single seat. Correct me if I'm wrong. Moreover, these are the comprehensions, few kind of comprehensions. The things can go on, but unfortunately, I'm running short of time. Though it was my topic that I could have participated more. But the interesting thing would be, how will Modi react after taking oath? I mean, whenever there was a breakthrough between Pakistan and India, the breakthrough came in BJP's tenure back in '99. I'm quoting that thing. So I hope this time again, the BJP and the Mia Nawaz Sharif's government here, they'll meet each other, they'll sit on the table. I think you have noticed it that our Prime Minister called him today and he greeted him and he asked him to visit Pakistan. So that was a very goodwill gesture from Pakistani Prime Minister, and I hope that Modi will respond back accordingly. So there must be some hopes, and since there are some sane voices working on the both borders, so I hope the relationship between the both governments that will go on the positive note, and the apprehensions here would be proven as null and void. Sorry, I'm running short of time. I had to leave you guys.
Right,
but
Ajmal.
best wishes and Shubhkamnaएं to hold the India for yet another successful elections. Congratulations to the whole nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ajmal. Thank you for your participation, and thank you for joining us again on IndiaPostLive.com. That was Ajmal Jami, anchor at Dunya TV. Running out of time, but he was nice enough to exchange his first thoughts and views on. But he is saying that there are some apprehensions before we wind up the show. One last comment from Mr. Kamar. What would be the apprehensions and how can the Modi government actually, try and address those?
You see, one thing is very clear. If you look at the Modi's personality, he's a very strong man. He wants to deal firmly.
Right.
But he had made it clear, this is the BJP line, which was initiated by Atal Bihari Vajpayee.
Right.
They want to have a closer ties
Yes.
with Pakistan. That is the most important thing, But problem is, as I mentioned earlier also, the militancy which coming from across the border. He wanted to go Pakistan. He would love to go to Pakistan. He would like to deal with the Pakistani and settle these issues, once forever, Every prime minister, whosoever comes to become the prime minister, he would like, that's his ultimate thing, is to settle the dispute with Pakistan.
Right.
So he will be. But the problem is, if any major strikes takes place, he will deal it very firmly. That is also certain,
Okay.
He has given a ultimate notice to Pakistan, or whatever you can say, But large majority of people and the political parties in India wants peace and friendship with Pakistan. We want, the better ties with Pakistan. They are our immediate neighbor. But not only that, we want economic integration of entire region, this South Asia with Central Asia, and Pakistan is very important because that's a gateway to Central Asia.
Right. On that optimistic note, a lot of concerns, but hopes and optimism, of course, and expectations riding high on the Modi-led government and his leadership. All eyes on that. Thank you so much, Mubarak Haidarji, for your time and insight and views. We got a lot of perspective and a very engaging discussion. Thank you to all our Google Hangout guests coming in from Bhutan as well as Dhaka, also from Vancouver, Mr. Jahanzeeb Hussain. I would like to thank Asif Lenin from Dhaka, and Ms. Sumi Khan for joining us. In fact, also Mr. Abi Tharakan joining us from Thimphu in Bhutan. Thank you for your participation at the conversation on India Post Live. Do take forward this conversation on a Twitter handle @India Post Live and our website indiapostlive.com, and we can continue these discussion, and your views are appreciated. All of you watching can also participate and share your comments on what our panelists have been discussing. Thank you so much, Mr. Kamar Agha as well, eminent guests here in the studio giving their perspective on what lies ahead for the Modi government and what neighboring countries are expecting. Thank you so much for watching India Post Live. Stay tuned.